I watched my grandmother put her hands on people and, arthritis and things like that would disappear. And, I would be able to do the same.
Kim Vincent, changes happen. It's amazing because right now change is like exponential all over the place, inside out, upside down, backwards, forwards, you name it, it's changing. As an introduction to Kim Vincent, check out the YouTube. And I did a real quick meditation, energy realignment, thinking, okay, this will get me grounded. It'll, this is good. It's short, sweet, and to the point. And then I realized I was really calm and vibe. So it's okay, this is not, and then I was energized. So it was that immediate, oh, this is nice. And then all of a sudden I had a buzz. So Kim, that was incredibly effective in a short amount of time. I'm impressed.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Wendy. And thanks for taking the time to do that. And I'm so happy to be here with you today.
I was really surprised because I wasn't trying to achieve anything. And so the fact that it actually resonated and did that little buzz, let's just go ahead and start from the beginning. You do coaching for people.
Yes, I do transformational coaching and hypnotherapy for people. And I've been in this field for 33 years and worked with a lot of different people in different areas. But my original introduction into the path of healing was very early on. My grandmother was a healer and a medium. And so from about the age of 4, I was starting to do energy healing. So I feel like I've always been on this path of healing and helping others.
So with your grandmother, what were you introduced to as a child?
A lot. So my grandmother was a medium and she would channel different beings to come through. So I was taught about spirituality, about energy healing, about the cycles of life and death, and that there is really no death. So those were really young learnings. And then my grandmother also taught me how to do energy healing. She saw that I had a gift for it, I guess. And so from a very young age, I was taught how to put my hands on people and how to channel energy to bring healing about to the physical body.
I think a lot of people would have appreciated that learning at an early age.
Well, yes, and it has its drawbacks. So, I thought it was normal and natural for me. And it wasn't until I got to school and my best friend fell over and I tried to give her some energy healing that I realized the whole world doesn't believe in the same thing. So it became a little bit more covert at that point.
Well, and that's the thing, though. It's like how fortunate to have at a young age become aware that this works. You didn't have to go through the some of us go through that, well, does it work? Is it real? Is it just hearsay? And not having anybody be able to demonstrate it immediately so you could know for yourself. But you, with that introduction, you already knew it worked. So just the fact that you had to be quiet about it is no big deal. It's just that it works. There's no doubt. And I love that. That changes everything.
It really does. I mean, I didn't have to go through that, like you say, that whole learning process of, is this real? That was my reality, So from a very young age, I knew there was no such thing really as death, that we continue on our paths and our journeys beyond the physical realm. And that, of course, energy healing is possible. And that, I think we all have that capability when we go into those deeper states of relaxation. All of us have that ability to do energy healing.
When you were a kid, what's the most memorable thing about your grandmother connecting and giving you that confidence that there is an afterlife?
I think there are a number of things. So I lived with my grandmother for a while, and so we would stay up all night having these spiritual conversations, which, for most 13-year-olds is unheard of. But I think one of the most memorable experiences was my grandmother had a hump on her back, so her back was curved over at the top. When she would channel this particular entity, her whole back would straighten up. And it was almost like she became like 3 feet taller when she would go through. So I saw physical shifts happening in her body as she channeled these different entities. And you'd feel them coming through. So it was never really a question of does it exist. It was more of how does it exist? And I had that curiosity from a very young age.
See, that would be fascinating. For someone who's looking for some kind of manifest proof, there's no doubt with that.
Absolutely none. Absolutely none. I watched my grandmother put her hands on people, and, arthritis and things like that would disappear. And, I would be able to do the same in many different ways, from backaches to headaches to all sorts of things. People would just, in fact, my grandmother or my mother would be like, "Oh, just put your hand here," or "Just put your hands on this person."
Do you teach anything like that? I know it's neurolinguistic programming and hypnotherapy and personal coaching, but do you teach anything about the healing?
Absolutely. In fact, my husband and I have a nonprofit called Healing in America, where we train people to do energy healing. And, that anybody has that ability. And in the UK, we were very involved with that because it's very different, the whole medical system. So we would often in the UK get referrals from doctors and people like that to do energy healing with people. So now we've created this system, and we do very simply energy healing and channeling energy. So it's similar to Reiki and all of the other healing modalities. I think that everyone really is channeling the same kind of energy when we're talking about healing.
I think part of it, though, is it can seem very complicated. There are certain symbols you have to use with Reiki, and it works a certain way. So I think that's more, for some people, it's kind of a barrier, because I have to learn this whole school before I can do any actual healing.
Absolutely. I mean, I trained in Reiki as well, the 3 Reikis, and then did the Egyptian version of Reiki as well. So yes, it is complicated with the different symbols you've got to use. And I think it moves you out of the healing frequency sometimes. That when we are in our minds doing the symbols and things, we're in our minds. And when we're in that healing mode, we're just a channel for energy to flow through. And we create that resonance of being like a conduit for people to receive healing.
I like that. And for right now, with these kinds of changes, a lot of people are expressing an interest, or at least curious about other things that are out there, because there's so much chaos. And so there's a need to find ways to balance, to ground, to bring some sort of stability. And this, I think, is a way of doing that.
Absolutely. And, I think we're alive at such exciting times, because what we've known for a long, long time, science is finally catching up with. And so we're having more scientific proof as well, that these things are real and exist. And you're right, there is so much chaos. And, although I focus a lot on NLP and hypnotherapy and coaching in my practice when I'm working with people, I'm always channeling energy, because I think in these times we have to be able to work on all of those levels. So it's a mental process, it's clearing up, it's healing the mind aspects of it, the energetic aspects of it, and the body's trauma often that the body holds on to. So I think now we're talking about healing. We need to be talking about it in a much wider perspective. It all aligns, it all comes together, because, we can't separate our mind from our body. It's connected. And so, we are all connected to, all of the different aspects of ourselves. And so when we're looking at any kind of treatment or change, I think it's really helpful to be able to work on those multiple levels with people.
When you're talking with someone, the first thing that you notice about them that suggests that there might be a way you can help them, what do you look for?
I look for how they're stuck. How is this person stuck? How are they framing the problem in a way that it can continue to be a problem in their lives? So, I'm often looking for what's the imprint, what was the experience that caused a chain reaction within this person's system. And I'm also looking for, what are their beliefs that support this? How have they kept it in place for so long? And what is it they want? What is it that the person's wanting? So we have a tendency, I find a lot of people come in and they'll talk about their issues or they talk about their problems, that very few people have thought about, well, what do you want instead? And so, it's finding out where and how they're stuck and also where they want to go to. And that creates like the bridge for us.
I think language is also a key. When somebody comes in and says, like you're talking about, this is a problem, this is a problem. Okay, well, basically that's reaffirming their problem. That's giving it a concrete plane to work from. Mm-hmm. And there's a void of how do you replace it? What do you replace it with?
Absolutely. Language is so important, both in the way that we communicate with others, but also in the way we communicate with ourselves. What a lot of us don't realize is that we're communicating constantly with ourselves. So what we're saying to ourselves is happening at subconscious level. So a lot of the time we don't even realize what is that conversation that we're having. What is that story that we're buying into that's limiting us in some way?
What got you started into hypnotherapy and neuro-linguistic programming?
That was a while ago. I was actually searching around for what do I want to do, and I was doing a class on homeopathy and interior design. I really didn't know what direction to go in, and I was dating this guy who didn't like the fact that I smoked, and I smoked at the time, and so he booked me on this weekend self-hypnosis course, and I found it just resonated so deeply with me that within a month of taking that course, I was actually signed up on a full-time course that was actually at the time only open to people who were in the medical profession. And somehow I talked my way onto it. So it was a love at first sight, really, with hypnotherapy. And then within that course was a lot of NLP. And I just loved that people can change quickly and easily, and that these tools are so effective, and that we don't have to go through, we've already suffered once, and that suffering can continue by us maintaining that. And to find that people can change quickly and easily and move out of that suffering state so effectively, I just found it. It's been my passion for all this time, and it still is my passion.
I was curious when you said that. I'm thinking, I wonder if Grandma gave him a nudge. Here, sign her up.
I'm sure she did.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sure she did.
There are a lot of things that happen around us and to us and with us that we are really unconscious of. And I do think we have help. I do think we have unseen guidance that is nudging us in ways that we can't anticipate. And I think that is part of what is so beautiful about all of this is right place, right time. And when we were originally talking and setting this interview up, we actually had a pre-run and it hit a train and then went and derailed. And so the thing though is that the name of your website is Changes Happen. And I thought that's the truth in labeling is right there. So it happens on multiple levels in different ways. And revisiting this from this angle, it's so fun to see that, okay, it wasn't a bad thing. It was just a redirect. It was also another self-fulfilling thing with language of this is real. It happens. We create our reality with our words, with our language, with our actions. It's multidimensional. Doing that was embarrassing. Excuse me, but we have to talk again.
Well, I so enjoyed talking to you the first time. I'm even happier to be talking to you the second.
It was just,
yeah, there are always signs. I think that everything happens for a reason, and that we can actually follow those signs, and those signs can really affirm to us that we're on the right path. And doing the right thing. Like I've literally had an experience where somebody said that to me. And, I think there are those signs, and the more that we pay attention to those signs, the clearer we become on, are we heading in the right direction or are we not? And if you don't mind, I'll share a little story when I was in England. And you know how we can have these ideas of what we want to achieve or the way we want our life to go? Well, I had one of these experiences where I got the complete opposite. And to say I was angry is probably minimizing it. And I used to run in the hills. And so I went running in the hills this particular day, and it was a wet day, and I was running in the hills, and I was so angry that I shouted at the universe, "You better show me I'm on the right path and doing the right thing, or I quit." And, just between you and I had no backup plan. But I was so adamant at that point. And then I got home, and we had a small centre that was attached to our house. There was a closed sign there. I'm upstairs, and the front door is locked. And this person starts knocking at my front door, and then going round, knocking at the back door to the front door. And I'm angry. So I let her go for a while. I didn't immediately go down there. It must have been 15, 20 minutes before I actually answered the door, by which time my hair's in a towel. I go down and I fling open the front door, and this woman that I haven't seen before, she looks at me and she goes, "God bless you, you're on the right path and doing the right thing." And I was flabbergasted. So you're right, things can literally show up.
What did you do? I mean, did you invite her in for tea at that point? Because how would she have had the language?
I did. So this lady, it turns out, I invited her in for a cup of tea. We hugged, of course. I let her know how meaningful her message was for me. And we started talking about spirituality and healing. And she was a healer and a psychic, a medium. And she was told by spirit to stop and give me that message. And she did. And was persistent, thank goodness, in that. But what was so fascinating is that she started to talk about how she learned about energy healing. And she'd learned through one of her guides that she called Redwing. And that was the same name of the guide that taught me about energy healing all that time ago when, I was with my grandmother. That was one of the entities she would channel. So it was wonderful to see that we had this deep connection to this spirit guide that had been teaching both of us.
See, that's what I think is fascinating too, is the threads that connect everything.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, you were so adamant. I'm done. See you. Bye. I'm giving it up. Go away. Don't bother me. And angry. And then when they're knocking at the door, nope, I'm not going to answer it. I already signed off. So the universe is trying to get through to you. Okay. Trying to get through that thick door that will not open. And finally, when you relent and say, and but that's what sometimes we do that. Sometimes it's like, you've had, it's the final thing. It's like, okay, I'm done. It's over. And so then there's the help, the little lifeline, and we don't see it because we're so caught up in the delusion of saying it's over.
Exactly. We get so stuck in these negative problem states. I was really adamant I wasn't going to answer that door. I was really annoyed that she kept going. But I think we get like that. We get really frustrated, and then we realize, oh my goodness, there's actually a message here.
Yeah.
There's something for me to learn, and that the universe responds so quickly often. And I see that more and more, like in my sessions with people. I'll see different animals will come in, or, different things will come through, or I'll ask them to look for signs, and they'll start to get that affirmation that then leads them to the wisdom within themselves. So following these signs and looking at them, I think for me, it kind of makes the whole universe seem alive, and we're all connected to it in a really beautiful and exciting way.
I love that. And I also love that my information comes through in dreams. And it was overnight, just this morning, I was dreaming, and I had asked, okay, please help me, kind of a mindset, a preset of what I'm going to dream about. Please help me and give me a sign or some information and let me remember it, please. Because, the remembering part is kind of a crucial element. You can pull the dream back, but not the entire thing. Okay. So in this dream, I'm with an older lady and looking out the window, and as I see just a wisp, and all of a sudden I see these wings, huge, beautiful wings, and a bird lands on the tree. It's an owl, and it lands just right up beside the building. So you have to be in a certain position, for one thing, to have seen it, and then to be able to continue looking at it. It's right beside the building, but since I saw the flight and the landing, I'm able to show the woman. She can't see it. And she bends down and she looks, and then the owl in the tree does this funky move where it has to turn its head quite awkwardly, but for an owl, anything's possible, to look down and see us. So it has direct eye contact with me. And I'm like, that's a message. It's a signal. It's a cue. It's a symbol, all sorts of things in that one thing. But seeing through the window to the other side and knowing it's there only if you know where it landed and what to look for. And to me, that's the message on the inner plane. Kim Vincent, changes happen.
I love that dream. And of course, owls are wisdom. There's a lot that owls represent. And, I had this client that I was working with who'd lost her husband in an accident. And he died very suddenly, and she had 2 children. She didn't really believe in anything when she came in. And it ended up, we went on a retreat, and she was on that retreat. And we were doing medicine cards, the animal cards, and everybody's picking one. Yeah. And she picked a frog. And she's like, okay, well, what does this mean? And then she goes, but I want a real sign. And she slams her hand down on the table. With that, this frog jumps out. And we thought it was going to hit her in the face. It jumped out onto the wall right next to her. And she was like, oh, my goodness. And I was like, that is your sign. That's obviously the sign that he's giving you. And then that night, she went to her room, and her whole door was covered in frogs. What was so amazing is that probably a year later, I woke up in the middle of the night, and right by my bedside was a frog. And I said, that's really odd. I've never woken up with a live frog sitting on my goddess card in the middle of the night, right? So I take this frog carefully outside, and I think that's strange and don't think anything more about it. Well, a couple of days later, there was another tragedy in this lady's life. And, then I started seeing tadpoles, and more frogs were coming in every day. And I think it was affirmation, one, for her, that there is life beyond. But for me, as a warning that, okay, you need to pay attention, and this person's coming back in and needs some help. Yeah. So you're right. The universe is always communicating to us in different ways. And the more we pay attention to that, the more signs we'll see, the more experiences we'll have, and the more wonderful and magical life can appear.
In some way, we have to get a language that we are both on the same plane with. Animal cards, feathers, pennies, coins. We have to somehow create a playing field. And that's what I think is the hardest part to learn, that these symbols don't mean anything until you give them some kind of frame of reference. And then when they have a frame of reference, you and the universe are on the same plane. You're able to connect because it understands, and you understand what the language is, or the code, the key. It's that simple. It's that some people, I found a feather, I found a penny, I found, this color resonates. And that's real. That isn't fake. That's our way of creating a hidden realm that has a full language that at any given time we can refer to.
Absolutely. And we get signs in different ways. It is just starting with something. So, something that somebody resonates with. And like you say, whether it's coins or feathers, when I started on this path years ago, I started by noticing feathers. It was probably about a year and a half after I started to look for feathers that this woman ended up knocking at my door. But, I would have feathers, different colored feathers. And often if I had a problem in my mind and I would think about a possible solution, when I hit the right solution for the issue, a feather would appear on my path. If I was out for a walk, I'd see a feather. And in fact, another time I was working late in England in this old Victorian building with like 3 different floors to it. And I was the last person in there. And I've been working with really dense energy all day long. And I like to clean the space when I'm done. I like to clear it so the next person walking in doesn't have to go through that. So as I walk, I'd seen the client out, and as I'm walking up these stairs, I just have a thought to my guides and my angels, and I just say, please help me clear this energy so I can leave quickly. Now, at that time, I had one chair that the client would sit on and one chair that was my chair. And when I went up there, the client chair had this beautiful white feather sitting on it. And for me, that was affirmation from the angels that we've cleared it. And here's our calling card.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I did the feather thing too. And when I was working, I did tarot and runes and just angel cards and trying to just figure out what worked, what resonated best for me. And I was working with animals, animal cards. And when I opened the book, there was the feather on the inside of the book, the first page. Okay, good. That's it. There was an affirmation that the feathers were at that point a guidepost. So it's that simple. I think in terms of like when you're doing the hypnotherapy, trying to reset somebody's mind, whether they need a cigarette, whether they need whatever addiction it is, there's a sense that it's going to take a long time. And the surprise is, for me, these things can happen immediately.
Yes. They really can. The power of our subconscious mind is incredible. You know, what I love about the subconscious mind, of course, our subconscious mind is our connection through which the soul comes through. So very often when we're doing hypnosis in that way, we're connecting with the person's deeper wisdom, almost like a soul wisdom that comes through and can produce healing very quickly. Our minds are malleable. Our minds can change, and a change can happen like that. It really, this idea that change takes a long time or it's hard, I don't believe in at all. I don't believe that that's true. I've seen thousands of people at this point make incredible changes very quickly.
Now, you've added a lot of videos on your YouTube channel, and these are directed at helping somebody, whether it's being stuck or an energy meditation or breathing. There are a lot of different variations here. Are you going to continue? Is that something you're expanding?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So after 33 years, I decided, okay, I've been one-on-one isn't working so much. So last year, I started to run training programs to start teaching people to do this work. So yes, it is very, very much. I will be adding to that. I feel at this time we are in some of the most exciting times and some of the most challenging times. And what I'm seeing in my practice over and over again is that people are being triggered with, like, any deep-seated issues are coming to the forefront for healing. Because, of course, as we move up in the energy, we can't hold those denser vibrations. And so that became very clear to me through, my guides and angels telling me, okay, it's time to teach. And so I'm following that. And yes, there will be a lot more. I will be updating that regularly. I'm planning on doing a monthly let's get together and send positive waves and healing to the planet. And I think the more of us that join in with that, the better. So yes, I've got a lot of plans to add more and more. And up there right now is meditations and some hypnosis recordings.
Well, I like the foundation you started. The one that I started with was really good, but there's another, protecting your energy field. And that, I think, is it's crucial at this time to start creating basically a balanced playing field.
Absolutely. It really is, because, meditation, there's so much science on it now, on what it does for us. And it does amazing things. It's such an incredible healing tool for us. And of course, it's hard for some people to just stop and, go into a space of no thought. Like, we need often a bridge to take us there. And that's the intention of the meditations that I've recorded. When we go into those spaces of meditation, we increase our memory, we increase our connections with other people, our resonance, the heart frequencies change. Like, all of these incredible changes happen within us. We're happier, we're smarter. There's a study that was done where it actually shows the changes that happen in our brain. And it will shrink the amygdala. And the amygdala is the part of our brain that's in charge of the fight or flight, fear responses, fear and anger responses. And it grows the hippocampus, which is, of course, involved in like logical thinking and memory and things like that. So it shows that these brain changes happen when we meditate. And I think that is fantastic, but also our relationships are changed by our meditation. And there was a wonderful study that was done by Maharishi. I think it was in like the early 90s. And he got a group, and he did transcendental meditation, or TM as it's called. And he got 1,000 meditators to come together and all gather in Washington, D.C. Now, at the time, they chose Washington, D.C. because it had the highest murder rate per capita. There was a lot of crime around, and their intention was to see, if we meditate, does it change the energy? And what they found was it did change the energy. I think the crime rate dropped like something like 48% or something crazy. In the reduction of crime, is people feeling happier. So when we're meditating and we come together in meditation, it not only affects us, it affects the environment around us. And I think in these changing times, we need to produce those higher frequencies because there's a lot of fear-based thinking out there.
The thing I experienced in terms of group, because I do believe group energy is powerful. I did a spoon bending class at a local university. It was like a one-time class, and they were demonstrating spoon bending. I thought, well, this will be fun. So as I'm, the whole class, there's probably about 20 of us, and we're focused on bending the spoon. And it was just like, whoa, it melted like butter. Mm-hmm. Now, I tried to come home and do it. I got it to do it again, but it wasn't as quick. And so this was like a huge, it's like, whoa, that's group energy. So when you're meditating or praying or doing anything like that, others around you who have a similar frequency or resonate with that kind of same energy help you amplify whatever it is you're focused on.
Absolutely. I was reading a book called Mind to Matter, and in that book is a lot of science. And, what that science is saying now is that it affects not only us, but the people around us and our neighborhood. So we don't even have to have the same belief systems for people to feel happier around us when we're meditating. But you're right, that amplified connecting together for a purpose is huge. And that's one of the reasons I want to start this meditation, which will be free and it will be live online. And I'm thinking of doing it like the first Friday of every month. So an idea of people getting together from wherever you are at a specific time and us meditating and sending those frequencies out to the planet collectively. Because I think we can change the waves. We can change so much rather than us being isolated and stuck in fear often.
When somebody is feeling buoyant, your energy just being near them is like, okay, it's contagious. And that, I think that's a way of explaining how this works, that contagious thing. You feel good, you want to share that, and then it builds. Absolutely. I love that. Yes. Contagious joy. That works. Yeah.
Yes, doesn't it? Wouldn't that be fun?
Now, the other thing that happens when you start meditating or expanding your awareness, then you do, or you can become more intuitive or psychic or become more aware of paranormal things. And that might be, might be good to say, this is possible. It doesn't make you crazy. It isn't abnormal. It isn't spooky. It's a natural evolution of your own psychic abilities. And that can happen with meditation.
Absolutely. We become much more intuitive, in tune with ourselves. And I think, I certainly see in these times, we've spent so many years following other people or listening to other people's wisdoms or thinking our answers are outside of us. And I don't think that's true. I think everybody has a wisdom within themselves that will guide them, like their own guiding light. It's how do we tune into that? How do we start to listen to ourselves in a way that we can follow that wisdom, we can access that wisdom and use it to guide us in our lives?
Okay. Has anybody been knocking on your door lately?
No, not literally, but a lot of people. I mean, I've been lucky in all of this time. I've never advertised, for clients, and I've always been busy, whether I was here or, in the US or in England. And I think that's people knocking on my door. Recently, I have a lot more connected experiences. So animal signs, animal messages, numbers that come to me, things like that. So it's more every day. I think that one experience I really needed as a realignment.
Yeah,
I think that's why I got that then.
Yeah, you were very stubborn. You were closing the door. Yeah. So
I was.
I do. I think that's not abnormal. I think that when we really have a big challenge, a big hurdle to jump over, then we get a boost and we get some kind of a billboard that says, "Here, it's okay. It's right in front of you. Stop kicking stop planting your feet in the ground and just go for it." I think that was it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I know that, when we are in those more fearful states, one of the interesting things I learned about that is that our peripheral vision begins to shrink. So it shrinks down to like 1% to 2%. And what that means is our ability to see the world around us is minimal. And when you think about it, when we were in olden days, when we were being chased around by saber-toothed tigers, that was really appropriate. We needed to focus on that and decide, do we fight or do we run? But you think about these days, we're bombarded with so many, often overstimulation of negative messages that it shrinks our ability to be able to focus on anything outside of that. So it stops us from really tapping into that wisdom. So getting out of those fear states in whatever way we can, I think is so important. I just put together a course called Anxiety No More about how do we work through that? How do we begin to break through those patterns and those programs and minimize that level of stress that comes to us so we can be in the fullness of our own wisdom?
I think this is a good time for us to be able to be aware that these opportunities are expanding and that awareness, like the veil is thinning. That's the one way of putting it, that these things are happening. And it isn't that it hasn't been there. It's that we haven't had the ability to acknowledge it. And so now it's always been there. It's just when you start seeing it, don't discount it. Start saying, aha, I've got a better picture. I can see more of the room.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It has always been there. Like I said, I was aware of it from the age of 4, now a lot older than that. But so yes, it has always been there. And you're right, the veil is thinning. We get messages and signs. And once we start to tap into this, it happens more quickly. We can connect with that deeper level of wisdom. I think our emotions are actually part of that connection to our wisdom, because our emotions are energy in motion. So if we can learn to listen and not react to our emotions, I think that's really a start to tapping into our own wisdom.
Okay, so the website changeshappen.com, and then you and your husband are also working with teaching people how to do energy healing. Is that a different website?
Yes, it is. It's called Healing in America, that one.
What does that involve? Is this a program, 6 weeks, 5 weeks? What do you do?
Yeah, it's 3 levels. So there are 3 courses. So usually you complete them 6 months, a year, and you attend either live classes or classes online. And we teach you the ways of being a conduit. How do you get out the way and let what is our natural ability for energy healing flow through you. So, from basic, how do you put your hands on people, to channeling the energy, to beginning to sense energies more effectively and learn to tune into those energies. And, on that path, I see people transform. It's amazing. For me, it's such a gift to be able to witness that. People waking up to their own divinity is beautiful.
Is there anything you would recommend? I mean, I don't know if you would be in contact with your grandmother, but for someone who begins to feel a connection with a spirit guide or with a helper, what is a sign that would be an affirmation for that kind of connection, in your opinion?
Good question. I think it's whatever's coming to you. So how do you sense this guide getting closer to you? Are you hearing messages? And if you're hearing them, I would begin to write them down. Do you get a feeling? So one of the things that happens for me is when a specific guide is with me, I feel their energy. My heart just starts to expand. Or do you see things? Do you get visions and things like that? And I think starting to create a connection with that, where you allow the time and space for that to develop, whether and make notes, journal about it, and begin to become curious. I think you'll be guided on that path.
One thing I could add is if you have a sense that you should not turn left and you turn left anyway, and then something happens, that's your clue. I need to listen.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's that thing of if you do it wrong, sometimes that is the way to learn, is to actually do it wrong the first time and go, okay, now I know. Now I can trust that I was given a warning and I will listen to that next time. Don't give him 3. Okay. The 3 is not a good. Just the first or second, you're good. If you have to go 3 times, then you're a slow learner.
Yeah, exactly. I could not agree more. It's learning to listen to those intuitive messages we get, because I think we all get them.
Yeah.
And like you say, some of us follow them and some of us turn left anyway.
Yeah. Just to see, okay, why was that a bad thing to do? Oh, I know now. Okay, that's right. I had, it was a guidance to do a certain thing and go a certain direction. And so my sense was I could take a shortcut. Even though I was told to go a certain way, I could take a shortcut because, of course, I know what I'm doing. I took the shortcut. Well, the shortcut is not a shortcut. My husband is with me, and we see, and this is real, we see on the pond geese, and the geese are synchronized swimming into the form of a question mark. And my husband says, see, they want to know why you did that too. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So then we find out this was not a shortcut. It was basically a loop that went in and around the apartment complex and went right back out. And I'm like, well, I don't care. If I hadn't done that, then they wouldn't have had to prove to me that they're paying attention too. So see, but I thought, okay, maybe I'll pay better attention. But yeah, I got an affirmation that I was being observed. This could happen. And he thought it was funny because I had made a mistake. And they called me on it.
I think that's brilliant. I mean, you'd never have got to see those geese for me.
No. It was like, why did you do that? We told you how to. And I'm like, well, I wanted to know. And so I knew more than I ever thought possible after that. So, but that's the way it speaks to us. That's the way it speaks to us. And you can't put it in a box. You can't teach it to anybody because I could not have predicted that. And I can't guarantee it for anybody else. But I do know these things are possible if we are willing to suspend our disbelief, our criticism, and our fear. And then we can go forward.
Absolutely. So well put. Could not agree with you more.
Okay. I will say, if you connect with Kim, expect change, because that's what happened for me. Changes happen. They just do. Okay.
That is true. They do.
Okay. And I really appreciate your time. Thank you for connecting with me again. I was like, okay, I got to call her. This is not pleasant, but we're going to go round 2.
Wendy, I'm so grateful for you and the work that you do. It's an absolute honor and pleasure to talk to you. And, I so appreciate the work you're doing here. It's so needed right now. And I really appreciate what you're doing so beautifully. And I love having conversations with you. So anytime you want a conversation, I'll have one.
Okay, I'll try to keep it at a minimum. All right, I just calm down and this is good. This is good. We're good. So anyway, sending lots of people your way and looking forward to the changes that we're going through, because this is an amazing time. Mm-hmm. Who knows what's going to happen next? So we're going to find out.
I know we are. Let's do it together. Connected.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And thank you,
Wendy, so much. I see people transform. It's amazing. For me, it's such a gift to be able to witness that. People waking up to their own divinity is beautiful.
Thank you for listening.